So, in our men's group that we do on a weekly basis, we've been covering many different topics. It's a place for men to kind of vent and be able to express what's going on in their life. But we're also really going through this series on lust and like what it is and where it starts. And, there's scientific things with dopamine, there's also things with working through where it started. So, in the beginning of recovery, a lot of men will say, well, I'll never look at corn again. I have no desire to. It's just been so damaging to my life. I don't want anything to do with it. And again, I believe them, but also let's look further into the future. If it's been a problem before, it's possible that it's going to be a problem again. So, how do we fortify it? And by peeling back the basis and the origins, you discover really in a lot of ways that corn is just a symptom of a much deeper rooted issue. So, we've been talking a lot about that and the pain points that are there. Really, with lust, it does start in a lot of ways when we decide to let our minds wander, when we decide to let our eyes wander. And buckling that down is a process that does take some time if you have been careless with it in the past. And the process of it can be very freeing as well. Making the decision to be faithful, making the decision to do something different than what society may have taught you, what you may have seen in your own father, or what every other man around you is doing. And so when a guy who's, caught in behaviors of like looking at corn or being unfaithful will say, well, you'll never find a guy who doesn't do this. Simply not true, because we have a collection of men who are actively working to do this. We have a collection of men who want to make this their path and their way. They weren't taught or attuned to as a child. And in a lot of ways, like when I asked the question of like, well, did your parents ever talk to you about sex? The answer is no. It's never been discussed really. A lot of us had to figure it out on our own. A lot of us had to really understand and shape it, and it was shaped poorly. And now we're in a position where we can decide. We know the path we'd like to take, and we can then teach our children to do it a little bit differently. But it doesn't just stop when you stop looking at corn. It requires more and more peelbacks for you to get to the root of why there's even lust desires in the first place, why there's things that are putting you in that direction that then eventually lead to the larger things.